So excited to have you here with us today. And I'll just preface this by saying we met not that long ago, actually, just by chance. I think, literally ran into each other at a Naturally San Diego event, a new group that I joined. It's not new, but I'm new to it. And I'm just so impressed with the amount of companies here local to San Diego doing really sourcing beautifully, really well thought out, doing well by our planet. And I just feel like unless you're really paying attention to these brands, it's hard to find. Like it's just I feel like it's kind of my duty as part of this work with Caring for Mama to bring forward these amazing brands like yours, that are really um, that are really, like you say, leaving the planet better than we came to it, right? Like I just love that idea. And so today we're going to talk about your journey a little bit, and obviously your company Tethos and what you're doing and how you're changing the world in your own special way, and all while thinking about how this work and thinking about the different uses of tea and sourcing tea and utilizing it in creative ways, how that contributes to the work that we're doing in caring for mama, caring for caregivers, and how we can maybe start to rethink how we drink our tea, or like reimagine what tea can do for us in our bodies. So with that, I would love for you to share a little bit about you and how you came to do the work that you're doing. And I love you gave me like the quick spiel, which we wish we recorded, but I just think your story is so interesting, and I think a lot of people can relate to the non-linear journey in creating something new in the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have the conversation with you and just be connected. I really love what you're building. And so I'm happy to be along for the ride and the journey and see where it leads. I have a similar passion as you do, as you already alluded to. My background is a little bit unique. I always knew that I wanted to help people. I just didn't know how. And so I graduated with a cellular molecular biology degree and chemistry and Spanish and all of these great things. I just didn't know how to apply it. And so I was kind of at that stage in life where I didn't know what to do. And so I became a whitewater rafting guide instead. And I traveled the world a little bit. I became a paragliding pilot, and I really, I guess, like really took full advantage of my youth, which I know other countries do very well. I wouldn't say that we're the best at it in America. I think young adults are forced to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives when they're 10. And it's like, I don't know, the world changes, life changes, we change. And like, let's give ourselves grace throughout life to reinvent ourselves and figure out what that looks like. So I wound up, still really wanting to help people. I found myself working in hospitals, thinking that, working in cardiology, electrophysiology was a really great way to change the world. And I was bringing people back to life. It was a very rewarding work. But I struggled with Western medicine because it's just not a place for healing. And I figured out that my passion is really in preventive health and how can we prevent people from winding up in that system altogether. And we have so much power over our own health through the foods that we eat. And I really found out a lot about that when I went to school for traditional Chinese medicine. I got accepted into one of the top schools in the nation. I was learning about acupuncture and herbology and the body as a whole and how it works together, which I think Eastern medicine does a much better job of getting to the root cause of a problem. I think emergently, Western medicine is by far the place to go. If you're having a heart attack, go to the hospital. If you're dealing with gut issues, go to an Eastern medicine doctor. And a lot of those things can actually be fixed through the foods that we eat. So I actually started my first company, the Also Good Company. It was a bone broth and soup brand while I was going to school for traditional Chinese medicine. And really realized like how many people I could impact through food. I grew it into a multi-million omni-channel business model. We created everything in small batches. I care very much about process. I think it's a detail that's so important and often overlooked in a lot of the foods that are made today that are accessible for us. And so I built out an entire facility where we were making our bone broths in small batches in small kettles, using a ton of ingredients sourced from responsibly raised, organic, regenerative producers, and really like taking hold of food as medicine and making that product to be utilized as something in our everyday, like you would reach for maybe a probiotic or a vitamin C pill, whatever it is. Um, the foods that we eat impact us. And I ran that business for 6.5 years as CEO. When I stepped down, I really found out that my passion lied in one, food is medicine, and also helping brands grow their business. So initially, I just reached out to a few friends in the industry and I started helping them grow their business, and that's taken off and become pretty successful. So I still operate that. Um, but man, I love food as medicine. I love tea. I love herbs. And we just don't have a good access to them in the United States. And I see all of this possibility with regeneratively grown foods and with small farmers that just don't have access to the audience. And so for me, starting Tethos was really what I personally wanted in the world. Um, and then being able to provide that for other people. And as you know, I also partnered with one of the world's top tea masters to create a tea wine that's naturally non-alcoholic. I'm taking some of the most premium tea in the world, pairing it with wine grapes that just never ferment, and layering it with fruits and spices for a sophisticated beverage when you want to be social, but you don't want to fall into having hangovers or inflammation or whatever else, um, you know, the side effects of drinking alcohol in our everyday life are. I really personally wanted something that was socially uplifting and that would help me be social without sacrificing my morning. And so I'm really excited about that offering as well. The blanket here is just, we are focused on food as medicine, plant medicine, and teas, and making sure that people have access to really high quality sources of them.
I love that. And I will say for this tea wine, when you first introduced it to me, I was intrigued because not only is it non-alcoholic naturally, but the fact that you infuse like hibiscus and elderberry and it's actually good for you,
Yeah.
actually healing, not just without alcohol. And I did actually share some tasters last night at an event I was doing. Uh, and it was so fun to see the reaction. I think people are just, what I'm seeing out there as I'm interacting with more and more people and talking about this idea of caring for ourselves and our loved ones, and particularly our mothers, as I'm focusing on caring for mama right now. But I do feel like there's this energetic shift. Like I feel like there's more of a, we're all kind of getting pulled back to Mother Earth. And I keep saying that in conversations because it feels, I feel it, when I'm out there. And I think that's part of why people were so attracted to, well, first of all, I thought it was just wine because it does look, it's like a wine, it is a wine bottle, in that shape. But then as soon as I started talking about it a little bit, it's like, oh, and it's like, oh, I'm looking for something that I can have to kind of integrate into my daily life. And I think for moms, especially, those of us who've enjoyed wine over the years, I'm one of them. It's not something that, first of all, we can drink comfortably while we're going through pregnancy and postpartum. I know some cultures do, and that's fine. But I do think that we're starting to shift more away from this mommy wine culture and embracing alternatives. Definitely looking at more high quality ingredients, organic, where things are sourced. So I just feel like you've really hit the nail on the head on multiple levels. And I'm just so excited for what you're offering. And to be able to bring it to more people. So maybe what we can do now too is talk about some of the specifics about the teas and maybe the tea wines, maybe some of the things that you've discovered as you've been traveling around and sourcing really high quality teas. That's one thing. But I'd also love if you could share a tip or two, something, I don't know, maybe it's a ritual related to tea or something that moms can do easily to contribute, to their daily well-being practice or self-care practices.
I love that. And just to pause real quickly, because you had a lot of really great nuggets in what you just said. And I want to just pause and speak on that real quick because you highlighted something that I think is especially relevant for your audience, which is this toxic mommy wine culture. Moms are not, it's directed at females. And I really despise that we feel like in order to get through a day, we need to drink wine or whatever it is, that you need some like external substance to alter your state just to get through a day. I think that that belief is toxic. Don't get me wrong, you can use food as medicine, and I certainly do. But do you need to resort to a level one carcinogen in order to feel that? Alcohol is a level one carcinogen on the same level as tobacco and asbestos. And it's not recognized or really spoken about because our society places such a huge emphasis on including it in every single social activity that we attend. And I think that there's a huge shift happening right now where people are starting to realize that that doesn't really suit their lifestyle
Yeah.
anymore. And the beautiful thing about that is the younger generations are the people that are really fueling this movement.
Mm.
And they're saying we want better for ourselves. And it's really causing us older folks, I'm lumping us in there, I hope that's okay, to kind of pause and be like, whoa, you're right.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, we don't need this in order to feel normal. Um, that said, I love consuming things that alter me, whether it be calming or energizing. I mean, how many of us drink coffee in the morning as like one of the first daily rituals that we have throughout the day, right? You wake up and you're like, oh, I can't wait until I have my coffee or
Yeah.
my caffeine, whatever that looks like to you. There's like a daily ritual. For me personally, I've really loved diving into the world of tea because there's so much potential there in terms of benefits and plant medicine. Obviously, Camellia sinensis in and of itself is such an incredible plant, and there's so many studies on this, ranging from white to green to black to oolong teas, pu'er. I mean, there's so many different varieties of teas that come from this one plant. And Camellia sinensis, when it's turned into tea, is one of the best anti-inflammatory drugs that you can consume. Um, in an age and world where we have access to so many things that cause inflammation, thank goodness there's tools in our tool chest to help combat that. I'm not telling you to stop eating cookies. Like, hey, if you need a cookie, eat one. Like, that's great. But do you need one every day? Maybe you could look instead for a peppermint tea, for instance. I've got a chocolate mint tea on my website that I don't know if you guys follow Kelly Levesque, Be Well by Kelly, but I feel like this audience might know her. She actually just referenced this as well this week, saying how she didn't realize that a tea could help curb a sugar craving so much. And the Thin Mint tea tastes like a Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie when you're drinking it. And it really helps me throughout the month when I'm craving sugar the most, to think, am I craving sugar or does my body just think it needs sugar right now and really I need to fill it with something else? Um, so I think that there are little habits that we can put into our everyday. Obviously, the morning ritual for me, matchas, I decided to swap with my regular coffee. And the reason why is because I actually do a lot of work on the computer and sitting at my desk. And I'm very productive in the mornings. And I've found that when I drink coffee, it actually makes me too anxious and energetic. And it makes it difficult for me to get things done well. I'm like speeding off the rails. I want to just get up out of my seat and jump around. Um, so for me, the matcha has been a really great tool in my tool chest because it's got a nice subtle uplift. You feel energized when drinking it. But because of the natural amino acids in matcha, specifically L-theanine, which I'm sure you've heard of, it actually helps tamper the crash that you experience with coffee as well. What I typically experience with coffee is like, oh my gosh, hi, 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 hi. And then I need to either continue to consume caffeine or consume sugar in order to keep my energy level high because you hit this crash, right? So what I found is that by swapping it with matcha, not only do I have a nice, even keeled energy level in the morning so that I can be really productive, but I also don't feel the need to then replace or immediately follow that with more caffeine or sugar or something that's going to help decrease that crash. Um,
Yeah,
there's
I
a
love.
lot here. I can like talk your ear
Yeah,
off. So
no,
pause me at any
no, it's
time.
great. And I think as you're talking, there's things coming up around, this the word balance, work-life balance, is kind of difficult because it feels like impossible to achieve. But I do feel like what's coming up for me as you're talking is that we can have the things that feel good to us or that we crave, and not give our not beat ourselves up for having X, Y, or Z thing, having a glass of wine. I enjoy wine, we all have our things, right? But I think what's important here is that there's an opening now. There's this more where we have more access to higher quality ingredients and teas, and now you're experimenting with different uses of tea, like with the tea wine. So what I'm excited about is that we have more options. And so we have, with more options and with more access to founders and, makers like you, who are, helping to connect the dots across cultures and across, through your studies as well, that we can start to educate ourselves more and more and build in the rituals or the alternatives. We can practice swapping, swapping out a ritual like you mentioned. I think that's what speaks to me too as a mom of young kids, that the realistic, the shift, sometimes isn't like, just flipping it off one day and making a total shift. It's like, how can we start to play with and see it as playful, see it as experimenting? Because as soon as we start making those shifts, like you said, we start to feel the difference in our body. And as we start to feel the differences in our body, we feel more in tune, we feel more connected. And for me, that's like at the essence of self-care, like really knowing not only who we are, but how we're feeling and being able to tune in and understand what we need. So I think a lot of times when we're just, we're frantic running around trying to manage, that's kids are not, that happens. But if we allow ourselves those moments to pause and integrate something that was thoughtfully crafted, thoughtfully sourced, and just notice the difference in our body. I think that's what's so great about the products that I'm carefully sourcing and including in these boxes, is that they're all handmade. They're all, or small batches, like you said, or, that you would feel the difference when you put them on your skin or you put it into your body. And that's what I'm feeling as you're talking, is like allowing that space to feel the difference and then make decisions, like if you want to change everything, great. If not, you find something else. So
Yeah, and I think that you really hit the nail on the head. It's about being thoughtful in that moment where, okay, I'm hungry, but am I hungry? Do I need to eat something right now? Or does my body just need maybe a little bit of tea to to calm down and really think through that? A good friend of mine is a nutritionist, and she really helped me to rethink my sugar cravings, which, let's be honest, sugar is in everything. And there are certain times of the month for me specifically where I really crave sugar. And I got to a point where every single meal that I was having, I was I was following it up with a dessert, something sweet. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, she said, are we rewarding ourselves for eating right now? Like, are you giving yourself a treat because you just ate? She's like, if you really want a sweet, make that your whole meal and then see how you feel afterwards.
Mm.
But maybe after a meal, instead of reaching for something sweet, maybe you have some tea.
Mm.
One of the things that I love about tea after a meal is it washes everything down and it really helps cleanse your mouth, your throat, your palate. Mint tea is especially really calming for your gut. And so after a meal, I always feel so soothed by consuming something like mint tea. I'm obviously spending a lot of time talking about mint tea. I have so many different offerings.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I wanted to touch on were the non-alcoholic wines, because I think that that's another ritual that we get into this habit of, okay, it's the end of the night. I'm going to reward myself with a glass of wine. Um, and I think like sometimes you should. And sometimes maybe you should rethink, like, do I really need a glass of wine? Is that going to help me sleep really well? Because I've always found that when I drink, don't sleep that well. And it makes my next day even harder. And that's when we start getting into these cycles of you wake up, you need something high, strong coffee to get up in the morning because you're exhausted because you didn't sleep well last night. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I finally get to sit down. I need to relax. I'm going for wine. What if, like, instead of that cycle, it got broken into tangible steps where it's like, instead of wine tonight, I'm going to reach for a non-alcoholic wine that tastes like wine. You get all the benefits of wine. It's got all the polyphenols, all the antioxidants, but you don't have to worry about a crash or hangover. And it's really comes with the functional foods like you mentioned. It has the elderberry, hibiscus, the teas themselves have so many healing benefits. And so for me, that's been a really awesome swap. I also really love a nighttime ritual for myself where I'm drinking hot tea as I'm getting into bed. I've got a few different blends. There's tons of options. It does not have to be one of mine. It can just be hot water for all I care. But having something hot to really flush your system at the end of the day, I found really helps lull me to sleep. I love California poppy. I think it's an underutilized herb in our medicinal cabinets. It's beautiful, it's floral, it's fragrant, it's delicious. And boy, does it help sedate you at the end of the day. And so I love drinking um, that in my teas at the end of the day. I love a good chamomile. Chamomile for me was really like my gateway into the everyday night tea. It's so relaxing. It's actually an anti-anxiety flower, so you can take it and just like help ease away some of the tensions that you might be feeling. So again, like instead of reaching for the habitual cycle of coffee, wine, no sleep, tired, make it through the day, I can do this. Maybe you start being proactive with those decisions so that you don't feel behind. Like now all of a sudden you're taking action over your life instead of just like falling into the rut of the everyday. For me personally, that was transformative.
Yeah.
So I hope that that's helpful for you or maybe anybody that might be
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that because and because there's different points that we can integrate it, right? For me, I want to try all of them, you know. But I'm thinking about, you know, after lunch today, I'm gonna grab a tea. I've also got some dried herbs because of the herbalism course that I just went through with Cindy Saylor, who's amazing at Magic, by the way. But I've got all these dried herbs, and I'm excited to you know, start to play with some of the combinations and start to experiment with what my body wants, what my body is like asking for. So after meal tea, I'm going to try that. I also love the idea of building in the tea at night for the rituals. I know we talk about morning and evening rituals, and I think for moms, I'm hearing more and more like morning rituals, unless you're waking up significantly earlier than your children, like it's hard to plan a consistent routine in the morning. So, you know, you do what you need to do, whatever works for you, I say. But I love just this idea of introducing just being being curious, and
I like that word.
maybe thinking about, for me, and this is coming up for me, so I'm just going to say it in case it resonates with other people, but like kind of my journey is in getting back to my body's baseline. Like where am I in balance within my own body? Like, so it's a, I feel like it's a lifelong journey in a lot of ways, especially given how much stuff we're surrounded by that is not helpful, right? So we're trying to navigate, what things are not good for us, what things can we help to balance that out. And so we're on this journey together. And I don't know, I just like the idea that um, we're walking this path, and so I kind of think of it as like a nature walk, and like being able to look at what, you know, really seeing the plants and flowers for what they are, and finding ways to connect with them and say like, wow, we're in this like earth community together, and there's so much that we can give to each other. It's both, giving and receiving. So I'm getting a little plant woo woo here, but it
Oh, I
does feel
love
appropriate given
that.
the conversation.
And just to feed off of that a little bit, I mean, Western medicine is a fairly new invention. Like that's only been around for a few hundred years. What did humans use before that? Plant medicine.
Yeah.
What blows my mind when I think about all of the herbs in the Chinese medicine arsenal is there's an herb that dislodges a fishbone from your throat if you're choking on it. I mean, there's herbs for everything. And don't even get me started on women's hormone health. I
Uh,
mean,
yeah.
there's so many herbs for that. We're really just
Yeah.
remembering what our ancestors knew for so long, but we just kind of forgot because we were given this hot new thing and we thought, oh yeah, we don't need that anymore. And now, and you talked about this in the beginning, there's this collective consciousness of people starting to return to the earth and realizing, man, there's such a beautiful bounty that exists that we've been given naturally and tools in our tool chest. And I mean, look at the amount of foods that we eat throughout the week. I mean, what, maybe 20 different types of
Mm-hmm.
foods? Maybe. Like, there are so many herbs. There are so many spices. There's so many fruits and vegetables that we don't even like really even have access to. But all of the ancient cultures promoted diversity of diet. Like that's so important. And herbs and teas and spices are some of the most nutrient dense foods that we can incorporate into our everyday.
Yes. Yes. And that also, on a kind of a final note about the what we have access to and what we see in front of us, there's more and more farmers markets popping up around town. And in most communities there's one any time of the, any day of the week really. So I would also encourage myself and others to get back to these markets and to just cruise around and meet the farmers and connect with whatever they have there. I think that's just, and it's not to say you have to go, do your weekly grocery shopping there, but I think it'll bring up some of these ideas and what you feel drawn to, or like, oh, I could start getting this product at the market every week. And then, just again, thinking in terms of like, being curious and experimenting with swaps that we can make. Because we do know that buying local and consuming things produced locally does a lot for our bodies as well. So, and it's always fun to walk around with kids too. They love seeing all the fun stuff. It's a nice
Say
thing
that.
to
It's
do.
a great family activity that you can bring the whole family to, and you can all have an active participation in. Oh, these carrots look really good. Why do they look good? Oh, because they're fresh. They don't just wilt when
Right.
you pick them up or whatever. And
Or
like having that relationship
they'll
with
have
the
the
farm.
stem. They still have the leaves and it's like, oh yeah, they
Yeah,
actually come out of the earth. I think
right. The connection.
there's a lot you can do with that. And yeah, and I think being able to, like I said, having these conversations with you and others that are really um, creating these thoughtfully designed companies to bring really the best quality to more people. Um, yeah, I love that I can elevate what you're doing and bring it to more people because it's just really important. We need to build this community in a more meaningful way. So what I would like is for you to say a little bit more about where people can find you and if you have anything coming up or any specials or something that you want people to know about for the holiday season.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for curating this community because it's so important as a small producer to have, access to people that care. And so I really appreciate that about you. And if you're interested in finding out more, you can go to Instagram, drink.tethos. The website is drinktethos.com, DRINKTETHOS. Um, and I actually just sent out an email. Sign up for our newsletters. That's a really great way to stay in touch with all of the current promotions and updates and new product launches, or maybe in person meet and greets that we're going to be doing, or sampling opportunities. So feel free to sign up for the newsletter and you'll be in the loop with all of this stuff. And don't hesitate to email. I get all the emails that come through. So I love meeting people and hearing, where you're at in your journey. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But that's why I do what I do. So I'm excited to connect more.
Yeah, yeah, and
Thank
I was gonna say too, I like I said, I sampled some of the Shiraz tea wine last night, and it was, people were very excited about it. So I'm gonna be for those of you in San Diego, if you're tuning in between now and the end of the year, I will be at several markets. I have a list on social. It's pinned at the top, so you can check it out. But I am planning to have some more tastings. So if you want to check it out, you can visit us there. And also next year, Meredith and I are dreaming up some fun stuff and collaboration. So stay tuned, and there's much more to come. And thank you so much, Meredith. It's great to
Yeah.
see you kind of in real life.
Yeah.
And just thank you so much for all the great work you're doing. And here's to all that's coming soon.
Yay, I'm so excited. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye,
Okay.
everyone.